Hi, I'm Doug Forbes, and I work for the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency. And one of the things that we do is we're professional planners. We put together a comprehensive emergency management plan that helps the police department, the fire department, the DPW, in time of emergency. And we give them checklists so they know what to do in an orderly fashion when there's a big emergency, such as hurricanes or winter storms or flooding. We're also, MEMA, the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency, is one-stop shopping for any state or federal or nonprofit asset. For instance, if your community needs the state police or the National Guard or MassDOT, they can simply call MEMA and we can dispatch whatever they need. In time of emergency, it's a good number for the police department and fire department to have. They call us and we send whatever's needed. Now, if they need a federal asset, if they need the Air Force, they need the Marines, whatever it might be, we simply in turn call FEMA, and they would send us whatever we need as a federal asset. And we also have, during an emergency, in our Emergency Operations Center, we have representatives from the Red Cross, the Salvation Army, and many other wonderful nonprofits that can send their assets as well. For instance, if you're going to open a shelter, you'd like the Red Cross to help, and they'll come out and help with your shelter. If you need food at the shelter, the Red Cross can do that, but the Salvation Army can also bring in more food, and they can also bring in clothing if folks need clothing. And that happened recently, just a few towns away. After a big fire, people needed clothing, and the Salvation Army came in free of charge with whatever people needed for clothing. Thank you. How's that? Good morning, I'm Doug Forbes from the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency. Today we're going to talk about emergency preparedness, especially involving hurricanes. And we have a special brochure we want to share with you today. I hope you pick up one afterwards. It's our preparedness guide. It's be informed, make a plan, build a kit, and get involved. So those are the 4 steps in emergency preparedness. Now, this is a very active hurricane season. We've already seen a lot of damage and destruction down south. This time of year, it's more likely that we could have our hurricanes come up this way. It hasn't happened for a long time, but if you remember Hurricane Bob, it caused a lot of trouble. So we want to be prepared. Now, like I said, this is a high hurricane season this year. Next year might be a low one, but it only takes one to cause a lot of trouble. The other thing to remember is that we live in one of the safest places in the whole world. Most of the time, when we hear of emergencies, we're sending aid somewhere else, whether it's in our own country or around the world. Very seldom do they send stuff to us.
That's for sure.
Yeah, but just like the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, we want to be prepared. Now, I started doing preparedness talks many, many, many years ago. A wise old pastor took me aside and said, Doug, whenever you get up there to speak, remember the 11th commandment. And I was puzzled. I sort of knew the top 10, but the 11th. He let me hang for a second, then he said, Doug, blessed are the brief, for they shall be invited back. And so we'll try and keep things moving today. So our 4 steps are be informed, make a plan, build a kit, and get involved. First of all, we want to be informed. Now, as you know, in the past, Lakeville has had some floods. So we want to be prepared and aware of flooding situations in our area. We want to know where we can get sand and sandbags if we need to dike up our houses. And if the fire chief, who was also the emergency management director, says that we need to evacuate, we need to listen very carefully. They don't make those decisions lightly. We need to listen and we need to do what the public officials say. And this is a wonderful town. We've got a great fire chief and police chief, and the departments here are just terrific, and they're very, very helpful. I travel all around the state, so I can say that with confidence, and I have great confidence in these people. So we want to be informed. Well, this time of year, we might have hurricanes, so we want to be prepared for hurricanes. In the winter, we think about winter storms. So we want to be informed of any hazard that could affect our area and be prepared for those situations. Now, when we think about being informed, we also want to keep track of our cable TV, our radio stations, and even our newspapers. And as we watch, we can see, for instance, if there's a hurricane in Cape Hatteras, we need to make sure that we've charged our smartphone, cell phone, maybe have an extra charger available for that, have a radio and extra batteries, and flashlight with extra batteries, and whatever we need. So we want to be informed of what's happening outside our house to make sure that when there's a storm coming, we're prepared. Recently, we had the tornadoes on Cape Cod. That doesn't happen all the time, but every now and then you get a tornado just about anywhere. And I called my daughter. I was on vacation down south, and I called my daughter. She was in South Yarmouth on vacation with her two little girls. And I said, "You better stay in the house. There's a tornado coming." She said, "What?" And she hadn't heard anything yet. A minute or two later, she did. They were just getting in the car to go to the store. Instead, they went back in the cars they were staying in and hunkered down, and they were safe. When the storm passed, there were some huge trees in their yard, so they were much safer because they paid attention and were ready to deal with whatever the situation might be. So you want to be informed. Next thing you do is you need to make a plan. And you make a plan for every hazard that might affect you. And if you're down south, if you're visiting in Florida, you might have a slightly different plan down there. But think it all through. For instance, you're staying in a motel room down in Florida, you're having a nice vacation. Make sure you know where the exits are and how to get out. Make sure you make a mental note of that before you go to sleep, because the hallways are filled with smoke. That's a tough time to try and find the exit. So it's nice to plan ahead and know just what's there. Now, for your own house, you want to have a plan, especially, I think, of fire safety. Now, we lose a lot of people because they get out of their house, but then they go back in for something. Don't go back in. When there's a fire in your home, you yell fire, make sure everybody's out, go to your meeting place that you've pre-designated, and you stay there and call 911. Get the fire department to put out the fire. That's their job, not your job. So just get out. And remember, that stuff is not nearly as important as you are. You're what's important. We can replace stuff. And speaking of stuff that's hard to replace, a while back in Brockton, Massachusetts, there was a young mom, and she was interviewed, and they had a big fire in her apartment. Her kids got out safe. She was safe. They said, "Any regrets?" She said, "I don't care. I lost my TV and my stereo and all that stuff. I feel sad. I lost my baby pictures." Now, what you can do in advance, if you have important papers or a few key photos, you can make copies at your pharmacy or a department store or wherever you want, Photoshop, and store them with a relative. So if you have a problem, they have an extra copy of your photos, so they're not lost. And a few key papers. Not everything on earth. Most stuff can be replaced. Might take a little bit of time, but we can replace most things, whether it's your license or whatever you might need, or your deed to your house. We got that stuff stored away. We can get it to you. But a few important papers, it's good to have. Maybe your insurance papers, and some of those things can be helpful. Now, in turn, you can get a copy of your friends' or relatives' favorite photos and documents and store them somewhere in your house. A fireproof safe's not a bad idea either, but it's good to have an off-site storage location because you never know what might happen out there. Now, get back to fire safety. It's important to know what to do in a fire. You need to be prepared. And it's something that people don't think about very often. In Chicago, there was a great big bank, and on the first floor is all giant glass windows so people could see what the bankers were doing in there. These are people with more degrees than you can name, well, at least not in the time that we have today. These are highly educated people. Well, there was a fire in the wastebasket, and everybody jumped up and ran around. No one called 911. No one put out the fire. No one left the building. They just ran around. Finally, one young executive said, "I should get the fire extinguisher." And there it was on the wall. He went over, got the fire extinguisher. He pulled the pin. Good. They threw it like a hand grenade at the fire and spread the fire around a little bit more. Didn't help at all. So what you need to do is understand how to use a fire extinguisher. But remember, it's a defensive weapon to get you out of the house. It's not your job to fight the fire. Well, what you need to do is remember Tom Brady, our favorite quarterback. And I'm going to miss him, but Gronkowski. When Tom would throw that perfect pass to Gronk, and he'd make a touchdown. It wasn't that beautiful? Maybe he'll come back. In the meantime, think about the word pass. So you take the fire extinguisher, which you've taken out of the box and mounted on the wall. It's visible and ready to go. And you pull the pin. P for pass, right? Then you aim it at the base of the flames. Okay? Then you squeeze the two silver triggers and spray and sweep back and forth at the base of the flames. And remember, it's a big fire, you're not putting it out. You're just getting out of there. But it's important to make sure, so you use that. If there's a fire in the doorway, that's the only way out, you spray down the doorway and get yourself out. You yell fire and get the fire department as quickly as possible. My sister was waitressing a number of years ago in this area for a very wealthy family. And they had the whole staff in their kitchen, multi-million-dollar home, and there was a fire on the stove. Nobody knew what to do. There was no fire extinguisher. My sister sort of knew the most likely place it would be is under the kitchen sink. And sure enough, she found it, and she put out a little fire, and everything was okay. They could have lost that house very easily. It wasn't mounted on the wall. No one knew where it was or how to use it. And that's a multi-million-dollar home. A simple fire extinguisher properly mounted with someone that knows how to use it can make all the difference. So that's what you want to do. You want to be prepared. Now, just so you know, going back to Chicago, someone finally called 911 after a few minutes, probably one of the passers-by, and the fire department came, put out the fire, everything was fine. Now, so you make a plan. Now, if there's flooding in your area, your street gets flooded, I know a lot of houses in Taunton, for some reason, they have the garage under the house, and there's a driveway that goes down like this. All they have to do is sandbag that entrance to their little garage. And their house, their basement wouldn't be flooded. They wouldn't lose their hot water heater. They wouldn't lose their furnace. So a little pile of sand somewhere around the corner of the house, and just heavy-duty trash bags from your favorite store. And you can put the sand in and just put it like a foot or whatever you need, and you can save yourself a lot of grief later on. So be informed, make a plan, and build a kit. There's all sorts of great things you can put in your emergency supplies kit. Now, you can have a big kit. It's really not a kit. It's just supplies you keep in your house. You can have lots of water. You can have lots of food and things like that if you're staying put. The fire chief says stay put. You stay put, and you get your supplies if the power goes out, if you can't get to the store, and whatever you might need. So, but a quick go kit would have a little bit of water, a first aid kit, a radio with extra batteries, a flashlight with extra batteries, and many other things you put in there. Now, more than once, I had three little daughters. Now I got 10 grandkids, but I would go and look for a flashlight when the power went out. I have flashlights, but I also have kids and now grandkids, and they've used them and they're all dead. So they know that my little GoKit in the front hall closet is not to be touched unless the power really goes out. Those aren't to play with or do anything else with. So sure enough, one night the power went out. I very carefully crept along, found my kit, and I had a bunch of flashlights and batteries, and our house was lit up like a Christmas tree. Everyone else on our street was dark, but our grandkids, it was a holiday, could see around, and we had a little bit of light, and we're a little bit safer. So you want to build that kit. Now, I'll go through the kit a little bit more later, but the two most important things that we want to have in that kit is an extra pair of eyeglasses and our prescription medications. Now, you might say, Doug, I'm wearing my glasses. What's the problem here? Well, it's good to have that backup pair. My colleague, a number of years ago, was in a terrible storm. He rescued someone, and he was successful. But in the process, his eyeglasses flew off his head, flew across the parking lot, never to be seen again. For 2 weeks, he worked in an underground bunker with prescription sunglasses. But at least he had those. It was better than nothing. So if he had an extra pair of eyeglasses on his desk at work, that would have been terrific. And so That's something that's very important. Have an extra pair of eyeglasses if you possibly can. And then your prescription medications. If you can bring them with you to the shelter, if you get evacuated or wherever you go, that's very helpful. Now, why do you want to do that? Because it helps the first responders. The fire chief, the police chief, all those first responders, they're not going to let you go without your medication. They'll open the local pharmacy. They will wake up your doctor at 3 a.m. They will send someone to the hospital, whatever it takes. You don't have to worry. You can get those medications. So if you're on the road and they say, don't go home, go right to the shelter at the school or the senior center, wherever it might be, no problem. They're going to take care of you. But the more you can take care of yourself, that frees up a first responder to help someone else with a more difficult problem. So don't worry, you're going to get your meds, but if you can take care of yourself, that's a great help. We'll talk about the kit more. The next thing is to get involved and to help in time of emergency. They might open a shelter right here, or they might have a warming or cooling station here. And you can come in and just help register people or give them coffee or advice or whatever they might need, just to be here to kindly help someone out. That's a great thing you can do. There's also a group that the state and the federal government, FEMA sponsors, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. It's called VOAD, Voluntary Organizations Active in Disaster. And you might say, what's a VOAD? Well, it's people trying to help in time of emergency. It's the Red Cross, it's the Salvation Army. It's the Southern Baptist, believe it or not. They have a lot of churches around here. They got one right there in Middleborough. And there's other groups, the Mennonites, and Catholic Charities. There's lots of good groups that want to help people in time of need. I call these people good deeds looking for a place to happen. And you can join a group that you're familiar and comfortable with. Not just any old group, but someone that you've heard of, whether it's the Elks or the Lions or whatever it might be. You can join a group and help people day to day, and especially when there's an emergency. So it's good that we all get involved in some way. No, we can't do everything. But if we can do one little thing and someone else does one little thing, the community will run smoother, people will be helped, and you never know, you might save a life. Now, I talked about the kit a little bit, and we're going to show a little video about the kit and a little bit other about emergency preparedness. And there'll be a test. No, you're going to test me. So pay careful attention, and here we go. And I think I got someone that's going to start that video. Now, this is your chance to stump me, okay? You ready? And you get an extra, I don't have any big prizes, but an extra MEMA magnet that you can have if you're able to stump me. So what should be in my kit?
Water.
Water. There we go.
Can opener.
A can opener, electric can opener, right?
No.
Oh, manual, there you go.
Crackers.
Crackers are food. I stole this from my daughter. Where is it? Yep. So you just tear it, knead it, it's right there.
Food for your pets.
Food for your, oh, you got me. There you go. So you get take an extra MEMA magnet today. And anyone else have anything? One of these little space bags, space blankets, and you can just put this in your kit or in your car. And if you want to, carry an extra one for our neighbors, because we want to help our neighbors as well. And that's available at the pharmacies, department stores, places like that. And that's the same blanket that they put on the marathon runners when they come in, because it reflects the heat back. All right, we got kids there, we need some entertainment. And we talked about having a portable radio, and whoops, and extra batteries, of course. And I had a light stick. A little more entertainment for the kids.
Medication.
Medication, there you go, right there. Good call. It's one of the things we talked about. What else did we talk about?
First aid kit.
First aid kit, that's a good one. There's a little Red Cross first aid kit. You don't need to have everything because when you get to the shelter, they'll have a lot of the other stuff. So you don't need to be carrying big bulk to a shelter or lots of stuff. And we need a flashlight with extra batteries. This is a really good one. You can get these, I think it's Harbor Freight. There's other places as well. It's got a magnet on the back. It's also got a hook so you can hang it in your closet or something. And so you can put it right on your fridge and it's right there and ready to go. I like that one. And let's see. The other thing I talked about was eyeglasses, clothing. I just give samples of things. Hygiene kit. Can you think of anything else we talked about? There's one other thing. I'll give you a MEMA magnet for this one. There's a fire in your house, and you're pre-planned, so you have what at an off-site location. Important papers or photos. And so those are some of the things you can have in your emergency kit. Now, today we have some great stuff here for you. These are some great, wonderful publications that can help you in time of emergency. First of all, survival in a hurricane, and that's a nice little wallet card. You can just stick it in your wallet or your purse. It'll give you some quick tips if something's happening. And then the preparedness guide we talked about before with the 4 steps for emergency preparedness. Then we have Preparing Makes Sense for People with Disabilities. And then one I want to highlight that's very important to me is taking care of your pets in time of emergency. Now, they talked about most shelters do not accept pets. That's not true in Massachusetts. Most shelters do accept pets, and most are pet-friendly. If for some reason your community does not have a pet-friendly shelter, we have a regional shelter nearby in many locations that will take your pets. So you don't have to worry about that. We'll take care of your pets. Now, what do you need to bring? When you bring a pet to a shelter, you need your inoculation records. Our animal control officer is going to want to know that they've had their proper shots. If they're on a special diet, we need to know that. If you have a little bit of their food at home to get us started, that can be important too. So you might want to have a leash. You might want to have a carrier for your pet if it's a smaller pet. And so we want to take care of that important member of the family as well. So we have a little brochure on that. We have the MEMA magnet. Please take one. Emergency preparedness makes sense for older Americans like myself. We want to be safe in time of emergency. We not only want to be safe ourselves, but we want to be so safe that we're able to help others, because that's what it's all about. And then we have a fact sheet on hurricanes. That's good for Florida, and it's good for around here. So if you're planning to travel, stick that in your suitcase. It can be very helpful. And I have, let me say, Doug, this is a senior center. Why are you bringing coloring books? Well, I have 10 grandkids, and I want them to be safe. You might have grandkids or great-grandkids or nieces and nephews that are younger. When they come over, it's nice to give them a little gift. Well, you give them a nice gift, they're happy, they start coloring, they learn about preparedness, they're safer, and they've got a nice little present from you. So pick out, if you got 10 little ones that come over and visit, take 10 of these coloring books with you, and it's all free. And the most important one is, are you ready? You don't need to write this number down because I have a flyer with the number on it for you. Now, I can't bring a case of these here because they want to track the households. So it's one per address. It's a free book from the federal government, and you saw it highlighted in the video today. It's the most comprehensive book of its kind available today. So it's one of the most important books you can put in your library, and there's no charge. It teaches you how to put together an emergency plan. It teaches you what to put in your emergency supplies kit. It covers hurricanes, winter storms, volcanoes. The next time we have a volcano in Lakeville, we'll be ready. I know we don't have volcanoes, but it covers just about everything. And it's the best book of its kind available. It's free of charge, one per address. You call 1-800-480-2520. That's Are You Ready? 1-800-480-2520. As I was thinking about emergency preparedness when I came here today, I noticed there's some nice golf courses in the area. I just live next door in Middleborough. Anybody a golfer here? No? Well, I've played, but I'm not very good. But I remember a story of the two world's worst golfers. They were nice guys, so they let them play, but they played last because they kind of dug up the course. They really dug up the course. But they said they had to fix it after they were done. But they just loved to play, so they let them play at the end of the day. Well, finally, it was their turn. They rushed right out. The first golfer put his tee down, put his ball on it. He leaned back, and he took a mighty swing, and boom! He killed about half the ants in an anthill. Didn't touch the ball. Well, not to be deterred, he leaned back, and boom! Killed some more ants. This kept up until there were only 2 ants left. One ant said to the other, if we're going to survive in this environment, we better get on the ball. And so that's what we want to do. We want to be prepared. Thank you very much. Any questions? I really appreciate you coming out. No, my pleasure. Oh, well, aren't you kind? Oh, okay. Hi, my name is Doug Forbes. I work for the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency, and I would like to tell you about a book called Are You Ready? It's available in print and also in Braille. You can get this book free of charge by calling 1-800-480-2520. This is the best book of its kind for emergency preparedness. It covers everything from hurricanes to winter storms to floods, how to put together your own emergency preparedness kit, and to have a family emergency plan. It's free from the federal government. You simply call 1-800-480-2520 during business hours, 1 copy per household. They'd be glad to send that out to you from the Federal Emergency Management Agency free of charge. Have a safe day.